Hello listeners and viewers, and welcome to the virtual stage, where we explore VU's journey in virtual production. In this episode, we're going over the project as a whole, what the Vodcast is, and what you guys, the audience, can expect from future episodes. To start off with introductions, I'm Tin, I'm a student at VU. I'm doing a bachelor's degree in screen media, and I'm here with my two guests today, Jeremy and Nick. Introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm VU staff, as is Jeremy. And we both oversee and manage the media loans area, which is... What's media loans, Jeremy?
Oh, so I'm
It sounds
Jeremy.
really boring.
I'm Jeremy. Like Nick, I'm staff here, professional staff. Media and loans is actually we acquire and lend equipment to students so that they complete creative projects. But we also develop the studio spaces here, so that's why we get this lovely studio coordinator in our role.
Brilliant. So let's talk about that topic for today. What is the virtual stage, and what is the wall associated with it?
So the virtual stage, I think it's fair to say, is it's this project, right? I think it's the podcast project is the virtual stage, which what we're trying to do is just encapsulate what we've done as an academic space, as a learning space, and as a kind of like as an independent production space, how virtual production can be developed, costed, built, and running at a fairly, I'm not going to say simple level, because nothing about virtual production I think is simple.
For sure.
Lots of complexity in most cases, but it's certainly like a very simplified version of what you could have, I would say. But yeah, with big dreams at the same time, yeah.
And I would also add to that, like the main goal that we really have here is to give people an insight of what it's like to develop a virtual production set from a kind of indie perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
But certainly with a teaching and learning lent, right?
Yes, like in the teaching and learning space.
I mean, when I think about it, I feel like definitely this would have been easier to do as a documentary. Why choose a vodcast instead?
Well, I think that what we really wanted to do was create a platform for bringing other people into the space, and the potential to have an ongoing series, let's just say, if this one works out okay, to keep going.
Right.
Was kind of nice. And I think that it fits really well within the podcast format for that reason, that we can do it as a series one, we can develop it and bring in all the guests we need. We can develop it as a bit on the fly, much more than a documentary, bringing in guests when we're both on location and in the studio.
Yeah, definitely.
A great thing about like the university field, like our field, is that it's really about sharing information. Like, because, okay, like, yes, we compete as universities for student intake, but if we're doing something cutting edge, it's so important that you have contemporaries in this teaching and learning field that you can, share information with. So for us as well, like, this is a transparent platform for us to share, show us warts and all what we went through with our development, and also hopefully the series can continue to be for virtual production some kind of learning tool.
And I think if you think of it, like, the genesis of the project was actually when we started to go out to universities pretty early on in our process, really. And we started to talk to them about what they were doing and what some of their barriers had been, and that really informed where we were at. That felt very podcasty in a way, like we were going out and drawing on these resources in that way, and it just seemed to fit really well, I think.
Yeah, fit the format.
Yeah, I mean, with your what you're talking about, collaborating with people outside of university, I'm just curious about what our listeners are looking forward to in future episodes, what future guests we're going to have on this podcast.
So we're definitely going to start with my visit to RMIT. We'll touch on that for sure, because now RMIT are probably the early adopters of this technology. Now, they didn't go with an LED wall, so they went for a virtual set that is run on green screen, and we definitely have gone there and gone beyond that. We also later, once Nick was really on board, we visited VCA, which was so amazing, like to see where they were, and they were quite far down the track, and they've really got some advanced equipment behind them. But it's not the indie route that we went.
Mind you, they've totally started again. They've got a whole new build.
Yeah, well,
but we'll get to
they
that.
must have the budget to do this. So then the Deakin as well and Swinburne are two other places that you'll get, I guess, an insight into what they taught us.
Right.
So we'll definitely meet academics from teaching and learning within those spaces, and then some other people that are just involved with production and things like that within those teaching and learning spaces as well. We'll also go to suppliers, consultants, which sounds very broad and generic, but people who actually are building LED volumes all the time. Mm-hmm. It might be partly for marketing and other things like that, but we've got quite a few people that we're going to bring in who have been highly involved in this virtual space from very early on, doing some very high-end walls, through to people who have done smaller, more sort of like commercial use kind of LED volumes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see some importance around, what you guys just spoke about before, the indie method, and how that contributes to, documenting a project like this. Who's the key audience for this kind of thing?
Key audience. You mean for this show, or to use the virtual set?
Well, we can answer both, right? I think with our set and with all our spaces, I think it's fair to say we really focus on a student experience first.
Yeah.
However, I always couch that with we need to be able to cater to fairly sophisticated commercial or industry level projects that might want to use the space. Partly because even if students aren't doing that all day, every day at that higher level, we certainly know that there is an appetite, particularly with the lead volume, to be able to come in and use a small volume at times from the commercial sector, from larger industrial productions.
For sure.
Yeah, and in our field, there is a business case for micro-credentials, which is always a possibility of people coming in, learning the technology, and having a certification of some kind. So professionals as well, but obviously primarily it is for teaching and learning purposes.
What motivated you to take on virtual productions?
Motivated. Oh, loaded.
Well, it was set to
loaded.
task, really. So it was like, Jeremy, do you think we can do this? I want you to research the viability of it. And I was like, so excited, but
Toys, so many toys.
Like the first thing I did is I built a $5,000 PC at home because I just want to know, could I do this at home?
Yeah.
And from all of my research, people were doing it at home. So people were getting like VR kits for their camera tracking.
Like the Steam kit.
Yeah. They were buying a studio camera from Blackmagic, which I didn't have to bother doing that. I just took one home and tested it. And they were running a video card into their PC. For about $10,000, you could possibly get an indie kit running in your house. So I knew you could do it on a home computer. That got me so excited. I was like, Mark, we can do this. And then obviously Mars released their virtual production camera tracking software, Mars, and hardware. And I was like, we really can do this, and at a good level.
Anything to add, Nick?
Well, I guess I always love the enthusiasm and I love the toys. I mean, anyone that works in our area enjoys it, likes to have the new toys to play with. But I was the dampener. I sort of I tried to smuggle, to suffocate the fun out of it. My thing is always like knowing a bit about the uni, being around for a little while, how long it takes to get a course up, how long it takes to get learning up. By the time we build it, is the technology going to be relevant? I've come across at our university, dare I say, and certainly at others, that some projects are grant funded. It gets
but
up.
That's always
it gets for
a
one
fear
run.
in our industry. You buy a camera, and then the next year, a camera that completely makes that camera worthless comes out, and that has everything in our field. So it's like time to buy, time to adopt.
And the obviously the scale and cost though with a virtual setup and LED volume
a
is
year
the
could
worry.
be the difference of
Yeah.
how many thousands of dollars, the technology advances, the pixel pitch is better. There's so many.
And
things.
also the stuff that's critical around timing, which is around screen calibration. Like
Yeah.
what we've learnt through various stages of the project is that people do all their panel buying in batches because they've got to be calibrated to match virtual
match
production
each
to a
other,
very
yeah.
high level.
Yeah.
So, you can't really add to a wall in some ways past a certain point. So anyway, it was a real issue around how do we get this in teaching and learning. And I was just always worried that it would take such a long time that the currency would, that's not what I want to say. Basically, it would be such a sort of complicated project to get into teaching and learning that without having done it before and executed it before, how do we know that we could actually get it for the cost that we could manage to afford? How do we know that we could actually get it into teaching and learning? And that's the big question. And I think for a lot of people, it still is a significant question. How do we get this into practice?
Even for us, I think it's still like there's still an element of it where we're like, okay, we can do it at this level, but how far can we do this in teaching and learning? Can we do it at the level that the feature films are doing it at? I don't know that we can yet, but I do think like we can definitely offer something that's going to give students and possibly professionals in the field access to the technology.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's all good. Thank you for Nick.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
Appreciate you guys joining me on this Vodcast episode. And check out our next installment in our next episode where we talk to Jeremy about the groundwork for this project. Thank you.